live hang, talking the potential fallout, I guess,
The
from
old BLH, huh?
yes, exactly. We're talking the potential fallout from this Dame Lillard trade, as well as the Lawrence Frank, I don't know, pretty chill press conference. Nothing super new. I don't know. I was
I'll
kind of
take it.
whelmed by.
I'll,
Yeah, no news, I guess, is good news, right?
I think in a situation like this where a lot of us didn't know there was going to be a press conference today and started to fear the worst with the way things have gone with injuries in this team. But yeah, it was all on the positive side. But it's good to be in here, Chuck. I know you don't have Will today, but we'll
No, too
manage.
busy.
We can still drop a few nicknames here and there. I got my new Oregon's duck hat on. This is Puddles, if you didn't know. That's not Donald anymore.
Okay.
But
Everyone was worried about this, so it's good that you're clearing the air on the new hat.
They were concerned about Colorado. No concern here. Said they win by 40, and they did. Put Dion in his place, even though I do like Deion Sanders a lot. But it was a fun game on Saturday. If you guys didn't listen to the last episode, I was wearing the yellow Ducks hat.
We did just get word. I invited Joseph to the live hang, just Joseph Fry Ward, former Clippers beat person.
Oh,
He's
great.
obviously retired. He cannot make it.
What a shame.
But he says, please tell everyone if they don't trade for Jrue, they're pathetic. So we'll talk about that possibility. Do you want to talk the Lawrence Frank presser first, or do you want to talk the Jrue Holiday stuff? Because there was some good news in the Lawrence stuff, but it's a little more interesting, I guess, with the Jrue stuff.
All right, let's start with Lawrence because it's more Clippers central here.
Sure.
You saw it from Joey Lynn earlier today that the press conference was going to go down. I was looking at Tomer Azarli's feed as well. He, Joey Lynn, Law Murray were the guys I was using for a reference point. But I know one of the first things that was asked, of course, was about the health of Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. And he said they are both fully healthy, which is, thank God, great news heading into training camp. So at this point, at least, it doesn't sound like there's going to be many restrictions on them heading into training camp. So you can build up some of that chemistry with a few of the new guys that are going to be there. And maybe there will be another guy, who knows, with what could be happening in the next 7 days or so. Or I guess we only have a few days before Monday and that media day and all that. But before the first preseason game, which is on October 8th in Hawaii. So great news.
Feel great about it. I didn't really, as you mentioned, when I saw the press conference tweet, I was like, okay, this could be catastrophic or good. Yeah, there was some good stuff in there. I think Lawrence had the quote. He said he's fully healthy, so I think he's going to attack everything. It's such a shame that he got injured at the worst possible time. His last 35 games, he was on an unbelievable tear. Well, he did in game 1, and then game 2 was incredible. He also mentioned that he dealt with 3 separate injuries last year, which is brutal. Kawhi's got to be fired up for this season. Not a lot of talk about PG, but I think he seems to be fully healthy as well. I think the most interesting stuff, what I thought, was the comments on the power forward rotation, because there was a question about Marcus Morris. Lawrence Frank said Marcus Morris is going to be ready for camp and is super excited. Lawrence Frank was asked about Morris, Batum, and Covington. If you're a Clippers fan watching the stream at 4 p.m. in the middle of the week, you probably know that there's an issue with the Clippers power forward rotation. If you're new to the team, get used to it. But the quote was interesting. He said of these 3 guys, there will be great competition. All 3 are really good players. All 3 bring different things. Am I mistaken in reading into this as there's still some who's going to play the 4, or is that wishful thinking for the starting lineup?
Okay, my guess on that is Lawrence is still leaving it up to Ron Lue, because he was also asked regarding, and this was a question I think from Joey Lynn, of the possibility of Terrence Mann starting next to Russ, Kawhi, PG, and Zoo. He said that's more of a T. Lue question. He'll make the decisions that's best for the group. So I think overall it's going to shake out by whatever pecking order Coach Lue comes up with the 4 spot. But he also spoke
we kind of know.
Unfortunately. Yeah, well, I don't know. is it based off of what happened at the end of last season? Is this a reset? Does Marcus Morris look different than he did? Is he healthier? I mean, he also spoke to, obviously, Marcus Morris was in a tentative trade for Malcolm Brogdon. And he said,
who's going to be healthy now by training camp, which is a little what the fuck, I guess, was kind of my thought when I saw that. Kind of sucks we didn't get that trade through.
Well, they wanted to get the medical records, and time was of the essence, apparently, with Kristaps Porzingis being moved too. So just couldn't pull it off in time. But who knows? Do they circle back to that with the Boston Celtics at some point? Lawrence Frank talked about how, they're always trying to improve the roster and make this team better. And I think Law Murray spoke to it recently on a 1 hour show he did. I forget the publication, but it was on YouTube over the last month. But basically that the group you see in training camp or the group you see in the preseason or early in the season very likely won't be the group you see at the end of the year with the Clippers. So they're constantly having roster turnover and looking for ways at least to improve this team should the right guys become available to them. So now we get this news earlier today with Jrue Holiday. That could change things. Who knows what Philly is thinking. I do want to go back to what he said, though, about Kawhi Leonard and just how good he was those last 3 months of the season, because I think it's been almost understated or has flown under the radar just because it gets buried underneath him being injured again by game 2 of the playoffs or missing the rest of the series after game 2 in the first round. He was incredible. The run he was on may have been the best version of Kawhi Leonard we have ever seen.
For the Clippers, 100%.
Carried over into the playoffs. And I'm not hearing you, Chuck. I don't know why I just went on mute for you. Maybe because you were taking a drink. But Kawhi Leonard, basically after January 7th, and that's when he started getting back to his regular minutes at, I want to say it was 36 per game. From that point on, shooting splits of 53% from the field, 47% from 3, 90% from the free throw line, while getting 27 points per game. I don't think he has a 3-month stretch in his entire career, and we're talking about a top 75 player ever, that was that efficient before. So it bears mentioning and repeating just how good Kawhi Leonard looked before the meniscus injury. And yeah, of course you're going to have more concerns because it's the same right knee. It's the same right leg when you add in the quadriceps and what happened with the San Antonio Spurs from back in 2017, 2018, somewhere in that range.
Yeah, that sounds
so right. It's that same right leg, and I'm still not hearing you, Chuck. But
the fuck?
But I can read lips, baby.
Am I back now? Did this shit work?
At what point, because I've said this before, it's amazing that Kawhi keeps having these serious injuries, yet he's able to come back better than ever. He comes back off the quadriceps with the Toronto Raptors, goes through a huge playoff run, wins the championship. Then he comes back from the ACL last year and looked fabulous the last 3 months once he got back to his regular minutes and looked better than ever. He has become stronger and a better player coming back from these injuries, but he just had another one to the meniscus, right leg, much more minor than obviously the ACL reconstructive surgery. But you wonder at the age of 32, when do they start to add up? When do they start to take their toll and he loses a step? Instead of taking that step forward, which is what we've been seeing recently with him when he comes back from an injury. Is it just me not hearing Chuck now?
Yeah, you got to fix it, man. The people on YouTube can hear me. We're hanging out
I'm a little bit, concerned with just the fact that he's had the same injuries over and over to that right leg. Chuck, you want to take it from here and I'll try to fix my settings now.
That sounds great. Thank you for hanging out with us here at Clippers Podcast on YouTube. Thank you to the listeners for having my back and being able to hear me. I appreciate that. Yeah, and I think Lawrence Frank said something like he tries to control all the controllables, and he just had some misfortunes, which is exactly what happened. Kawhi's a control freak. I don't mean that in a bad way. It's how he is with kind of everything. And I'm happy we get to start this season kind of in full control, right? He's starting 100% healthy. Can you hear me now? Can you?
I got you.
Okay, great.
The network's with you. I can hear you now.
So now we're starting in a controlled environment, which is perfect. I'm excited to see training camp. I don't think we're going to see him play a bunch in the preseason and stuff like that. But when we finally get to see them kind of take the floor after how things were going and then how they ended, it's going to be a huge relief for Clippers fans heading into this preseason.
And mind you, they dodged a bullet with Paul George. When that happened against OKC and Lou Dort, it looked devastating.
Mm-hmm.
It looked like what happened to Nick Chubb recently with the Cleveland Browns. It looked that bad. He didn't get taken off on a cart, but it looked like his knee
was bad.
bent all the way back, and there was due to be some type of ligament damage going on with Paul George. They absolutely, you want to talk about Clippers bad luck all the time. Well, they were fortunate that wasn't some type of career-altering injury for Paul George when you thought he had one back in 2014 with Team USA with the compound fracture. But he responded from that, and he was just playing his best basketball right before that happened. So there's the unlucky side of it. But still, the fact that we're talking about Paul George playing in training camp and also being 100%, the night when that happened, I thought the 2-1-3 era was over. I thought we were looking at Paul George possibly out for all of this season.
I'll have to check my text from that night to see if you were melting down, but I probably got some good ones in there.
I was melting down post-game on Clippers talk a little bit. It looked awful, but he's had, for as much as he's had little injuries since the devastating 2014 injury to his right leg, he's kind of had some of that rubber bands, elasticity, snapback, minor injuries, but he's able to get back exactly where he was. And even at the age of 33, he does a 360 dunk in a half-court set in the lane against OKC.
We're going to be
right
talking
before
about that
injury. His athleticism is still very much at where it was in Indiana. We saw the side-by-side dunk that was from the 22-20 or the 21-22 season, where you put it side by side against his Birdman dunk in the Eastern Conference Finals from 2013, where he dunked on Chris Anderson. It looked exactly the same. Mm-hmm. It's incredible the way he's been able, even through all the little injuries, to still at peak form be able to get to that same level.
So we saw there was the Slam interview with PG. He was talking about being back on his bully, which, you know what? I hate that we can't say back on his bully shit like in the media because it sounds – I like what PG is saying, but back on his bully does not sound good.
I thought Slam Magazine would have allowed it. Maybe not on the cover.
But, right. But it's anyway. The J-Bo's 84 on the stream says, I want to see Kawhi on his bully-ish. I think Kawhi is going to come out and absolutely, he also needs to do this, set the tone for the Clips to open the season. Lawrence Frank talked about taking the regular season more seriously today. He mentioned the Denver Nuggets as a team that did that. The Denver Nuggets won games they were supposed to win, and they played well in games they were supposed to win that they won. It wasn't some weird, we won by 8 or something like that. It was a game where it was concrete victories against lesser teams, which is what the Clippers need to do. And I like what J-Bo says here, but I think it's going to happen. I think Kawhi is going to come out and set the league on fire to open the season in his Kawhi way.
I think you're right because, with the way that slow ramp up process went last season, he didn't seem happy at all with coming off the bench because when they talked about how that was over, he said, no, we killed that. No, we killed that.
Never
it's not like maybe he
again.
had some influence on them killing it. But you mentioned the Denver Nuggets there, and as good as they were, we're talking about a team in the regular season that was the number 1 seed that still only won 53 games. The number 1 seed won just 53 games, and they started to shut things down and kind of play around the last month and a half of the season when they knew they pretty much had that 1 seed locked up. Now, part of that was due to injuries and other teams not taking the regular season as serious. The Grizzlies were behind them with 51. The Kings with 48, who had pretty much outside Domantas Sabonis and that hand injury, which he played through, they didn't have to deal with many injuries at all last season. They still only won 48 games. So as much as we talk about the Clippers only won 44 games, okay, yeah, but they were still only, 9 games behind the number 1 seed that went on to win it all. So it's interesting just how teams prepare for the regular season and how they attack it. But for the Clippers, coming off of the bad taste in their mouth from last year and the ramp up process with Kawhi, I agree with you. I think he is going to hit the ground running, hopefully, and just looking like the dominant player that we've seen, at the end of last season to start off next year. And I like what you said. He's starting off at 100%. Like, that is a stark contrast to what we've seen, because even when they brought him in originally from the Raptors in that 2019 offseason, he dealt with an injury throughout the playoffs that he was able to play through for Toronto and win that championship. And we knew in the training camp then he wasn't going to be able to fully participate.
Yeah. I mean, it's an exciting kind of day, I guess, to get the confirmation he's fully healthy. I was an up and down presser. We talked a little bit about the Morris stuff, but no one really was sounding off on Twitter about the Marcus Morris thing, which is interesting. I like that Lawrence Frank was like, he understands it's a business. And I'm like, well, he seemed pretty pissed off like earlier. If that happens at most places, usually there's some kind of intervention by those up top. But I hope training camp's cool. I have no bad faith that training camp's going to be messy with Marcus Morris there. I just hope every other power forward beats him in the competition for what potentially might be an open starting spot.
Well, and the good thing is with Marcus, if he's there in training camp, I don't think there's any issue with him in the roster. It's not going to be quarrelsome or contentious with any of the players there. It's not going to mess with the locker room. If he has an issue with the front office or with the coaching staff, that's still different than having something with your teammates that causes a schism in the clubhouse or locker room in this case. So, yeah, I agree. He's also, over the years, if you listen to Marcus Morris, because they brought him in, he was due a big contract. They paid him after the bubble season, and he always thanked them for taking care of him.
Yeah.
Sure. But he always said, like, the Clippers took care of me. They took care of me. So we'll see if they still have that equity built up from what happened during that offseason then, where they kept their word and paid him his money after they made the midseason acquisition in 2020.
It's going to be interesting. Training camp has a lot of battles. We talked about this on the last episode, how Kobe Brown might have some kind of shot at some minutes moving forward. More than Musa is now my new goal for Kobe Brown. But I think the other news today we have to talk about is the Dame Lillard trade. Jrue Holiday goes to the Blazers, and they're trying to get rid of him per Woj. So we got a small ad break, and then we're going to talk about what that means for the Clippers, how we feel about Jrue Holiday possibly. I might be on board with him, I think. We got an ad break coming up, and then coming back to talk about the Jrue and Dame Lillard stuff.
Welcome back in Clips and Dip, a live edition here on YouTube.
So stupid.
As we get the 80s point from Chuck there. But obviously news broke about 3 hours ago. I was about to go to the gym and it almost killed my gym time. I was too excited about this NBA news.
Damian Lillard, you don't want to lift too hard, you know?
I just got on the treadmill so I could watch TV the entire time and hear the pundits talk about the Milwaukee Bucks now acquiring Damian Lillard. So he doesn't go to Miami. He doesn't go to Philly. He goes to Milwaukee, where he's already had a relationship with Giannis Antetokounmpo. It's funny. I was watching NBA TV earlier, and they played the All-Star Game draft between LeBron and Giannis Antetokounmpo. And who was Giannis's first pick? It was Damian Lillard over
There's tweets
Jrue
from
Holiday.
Damian Lillard, too, from back in the day about wanting to help Giannis. Like,
this has been a long time coming. I think the only hesitation from Dame was, and the reason he wanted to go to Miami so bad was, the Bucks have won recently. He wanted to be the missing piece in Miami. He wanted to feel like he was the guy that helped get them over the hump because they were that close, because he was always talking about not running from the grind, taking the easy way out, using the cheat code or shortcut like Kevin Durant did with the Golden State Warriors. He didn't want to be thrown into that. But it's obviously
forward.
Well, did he have to sign off on it? Because I don't know what his no trade clause situation was.
I mean, there's no way that organization, I don't think we talked about equity, in the last segment. I don't think there's any way he's not, letting know that he's cool with that. And they are like a contender. So
The other thing I saw was, and Chris Haynes has had a pipeline to Damian Lillard. They have a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
He was on NBA TV talking about the entire summer as adamant and as staunchly opposed as Dame and his agent were to going to anywhere else but the Miami Heat. Those conversations with the Heat didn't go far at all with Portland, it sounded like. Like they did not have
that
some
seems like a mess over
framework
there.
with
Like,
a trade.
well, the Heat, it seemed like the Heat were like, why doesn't he give him, why don't the Blazers honor Dame's wishes and give him to us for pennies on the dollar? And it's like, well, because they have no reason to. They've already given Dame a lot of pennies on the dollar for his contract. Like, this isn't how this works. You're not sister teams. Like,
I always thought it was a little bit in the wrong on Dame's side, because if you take the extension with that team, you don't get to have your cake and eat it too.
Right.
Because he couldn't get that money anywhere else.
Right.
So you don't get to get the extension and choose where they trade you at the same time. Portland has an obligation to do what's best for the organization, not what's best for Dame. Now he and his agent, they got to do what's best for him. So I understand it was going to be uncomfortable, and it was at times, but ultimately I think both sides are very happy with this. Portland overall, I think, did very well.
I did too. I think the Suns got worse. Speaking of extensions, we didn't talk about this in the last segment, but there was some talk about the Kawhi and PG extensions during the Lawrence Frank presser. He basically said, like, we're going to work with their people. We want to keep building around Kawhi and PG. Didn't feel like a big update either way. I think everyone kind of assumed that. I think some people assume that PG is not going to get the max, whereas Kawhi might, because there's a new thing where you don't have to give someone the max extension.
I mean, that could be still, that's part of the negotiation process. You want to keep a good relationship with his agents and stuff. And what you're saying, Lawrence Frank is too smart to lift the curtain up and show anybody what's happening in the media behind the scenes with those negotiations. So that's exactly what I would expect him to say. And I believe him that they do want them.
Totally.
The question is, for what price? Right. That's what it comes down to.
How many years? All right. Sorry. Back to the Jrue thing. So per Woj, now that the Blazers have Jrue Holiday, he said they're going to remain engaged elsewhere on talks and are expected to immediately engage contending teams on trade talks to move Jrue Holiday. Portland is committed to its young group of talented guards. Yada, yada, yada. Where are we at on Jrue Holiday? Because I'm going to be honest, I like this idea. Bringing Jrue Holiday in, it probably moves Russell Westbrook to the bench. He played like 96% of his minutes at the 1 last year. I don't think they'd move him to the 2 because the shooting would be pretty rough with Jrue and Russ out there. I don't care how big of a Russ fan you are or a Jrue fan. That's some rough shooting at the 1 and the 2. But, I mean, the defense, Jrue Holiday, Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, Zubats, Adam Osland, that's a lockdown 5. No disrespect to your on-ball defense, but even you out there is a pretty solid defensive lineup. Where are you at on the Jrue thing? It's a kind of a new fun possibility for Clippers fans.
I've had an affinity for Jrue Holiday, somebody who was injury prone early on in his career with Philly and the Pelicans, and he's kind of put that stuff behind him. He was an all-star last season for, I believe, the first time. Great locker room guy, great leader, will do anything to win. While his offense at times has dipped in the playoffs efficiency-wise, and some people were comparing him and Bledsoe and what he did for the Bucks offensively versus Jrue Holiday, there's no comparison to what Jrue Holiday does defensively.
Right. There's a reason one of them still plays for a contending team and is going to go to another contending team.
Well, and I think his offense often has suffered because of the energy he expends on the defensive end and willing to take on and guard somebody 94 feet, Patrick Beverley style.
We have to show Robert Flom, 213 Hoops royalty, is in the chat. He said the newest Clippers Marcus Morris after a terrific offseason. Hello, Robert. Thank you for the contribution.
Big shot Bob Flom, Robert Flom is the original Marcus Morris hater. And he wants everybody to know that.
He is. And he's not wrong for the most part.
We love you, Robert.
Eric Weiss says, how dare you, Roberto?
But Jrue Holiday is one of those guys that every team would love to have. Now, his contract is large this season, but he has a player option next year for $37 million. And over the last year, he's talked about possibly retiring. sooner than later. So I think there's actually a possibility he would, if he was seeking a retirement in the next 2 years, he would just opt into the $37 million next
I
year.
personally would.
I'm sure you would, Chuck. But he can help anybody because it doesn't matter what his role is. He's going to excel in it. And he can be off ball. He can be on ball. He fits in the crevices so well for your team. He finds ways to contribute that just leads to winning basketball. And it was not a fluke. And a lot of people thought at the time the Bucks may have given up too much for him when they brought him in. Obviously, you go on to win the championship. It doesn't matter at that point, as he was a big contributor. Wasn't just Chris Middleton, wasn't just Giannis Antetokounmpo and Brook Lopez. Jrue Holiday was as vital and integral to that 2021 Bucks championship team.
And so Lob Murray had a great tweet too. Let me see if I can find it real quick. He said, "I'll say the obvious. Just about everything that made sense about James Harden and the Clippers' connection, on ball, off ball, positional size and versatility, contract number, contract years, respect from stars, hometown ties, applies to Jrue Holiday," which is great. I think that's totally right.
It's just James Harden is obviously the bigger plus offensively. Jrue Holiday for him is defensively. And by the way, this would be another guy coming back home. I'm coming home. It would be Jrue Holiday, went to high school down here, played at UCLA. They'd have him. They'd have KJ Martin, Kawhi, Paul George, Norman Powell, Westbrook, all Southern California guys playing for the Clippers. Same though with James Harden if he came here.
Sure. Okay. So, and now let's talk how the trades would maybe work. Eric Bui put in a trade machine idea that does work per the rules, of course. If it works per the rules, the other team has to accept it. We all know that. He said,
"Does Adam Silver oversee all trade machine moves?"
Do you think that'd be funny if Adam Silver's like, "Get me the trade machine report every day." He said, so Mook and Norm, the salaries work for Jrue. I don't see Portland doing that. I'm assuming any trade for Jrue to the Blazers is probably going to involve Terrence Mann. And is probably maybe they're going to ask for a first-round pick. Because if they like these young guards, they're not going to trade for Marcus Morris. Maybe they trade and then they waive him, but they're going to want some draft capital too. And Will Updike, who is usually the third host who's not here, pointed out the 2030 Clippers first-round pick is a potentially, how you want to pitch it, very valuable thing for these things.
Not from what I've heard from Steve Ballmer, saying they don't ever want to have to reset or do a trust the process type thing. He always wants to be competitive.
I understand that. I agree. I hope it's not really valuable. I hope we trade it and then in 3 years can say, can you believe we fleeced them with the 30th pick in 2030? But where you at? Joseph Ryan Ward, who can't make the podcast, said Terrence Mook, Nico, and the 2028 for Jrue Holiday. Are you doing that?
Probably. Yeah, I would be. I don't know. That's tough. Terrence being involved. I wonder how much interest there is in Kobe Brown. Obviously, these front offices have had a relationship and have worked together recently in bringing in Norman Powell and Robert Covington to the Clippers last year. But I think a first-round pick, it starts there. Otherwise, it's just a non-starter, and you can just end the conversation. They're going to want one first-round pick, and I don't think you should have to give up more than one to get Jrue Holiday.
Oh, I'm out. If it's 2 first-round picks, I'm like, yeah, let's see what happens with the other guy.
They only got one for Damian Lillard, so I think they understand what the price tag is.
Hopefully, yeah.
But they also are in this great position. One of the reasons I think they did so well today is getting Jrue Holiday, that player that can be an X factor that you can plug and play in so many different lineups for so many different teams that can help you get a little bit closer to a ring. It drives up the price because teams are going to be bidding against one another. Yeah. I think that's what really helps Portland in this case, because now there's more desperation out there. The Miami Heat didn't end up getting Damian Lillard. The Philadelphia Sixers didn't get him.
Suck Miami, yeah.
I mean, they've had a few rings and some good fortune the last decade.
I know. Come on, man. We haven't. I got to talk some shit.
I think the Portland Trailblazers did well because they're going to be able to dangle Jrue Holiday out there as a bargaining chip, and a lot of teams are going to be in need of his services, not just the Clippers. Now, that could, though, create a situation where, is that the easy fit for Philly? Do they say, okay, if we get Jrue Holiday, we're willing to give up James Harden? They'd probably still want something else. Maybe they'd still want a first-round pick, second-round pick, a young player too, because Jrue Holiday is 32 years of age. But I would think after today's movement, there's a better chance that the Clippers have an opportunity to get James Harden.
Which do you want?
Between those two?
Yeah.
I like both of them.
Jrue straight up.
Different.
Yeah, that's why I'm asking you, which one do you want?
Well, I'm stalling because it's close. All right, Charles?
I mean, they do such different things, because I've been thinking about that too ever since this trade. It was like, do I want to lean into the defensive side of this 2-1-3, where we know, like you mentioned, it's a little more physically taxing and things like that, but Jrue Holiday can pick up some of that slack? Or do we want, this distribution, this point guard thing that we've been, I don't know, frantically trying to find through every possible avenue?
And we talk about Terrence Mann and how he could be the sweetener and make any deal come to fruition, especially with Portland. But he is 27, and he's going to have to be paid after next season. They may not want to deal with that. He may be too old for them.
He's 26.
And where they're at on their timeline.
He's 26.
Is he going to be 27?
In about 23 days.
So for this season, he's going to be playing at the age of 27.
Yeah.
But the contract, he's good this season. I don't know if it's an opt-out after next year.
Let me check.
But it is a situation where you're going to have to make a decision on him sooner
he's
than
not
later.
Gonna he won't get paid a bunch. Like Terrence Mann isn't a guy. He's at, 23, 24, 10 million, 10 and a half, 24, 25. He's locked in for 11.4.
But remember, they still have Jeremy Grant in his $160 million contract.
I forgot about Jeremy Grant, man.
Which is a weird situation. He doesn't make sense on that team anymore. So I wonder if either they start the season with him and they play it out, and maybe he gets off to a really hot start like he did his first year with the Detroit Pistons. He balls out and they move him at the trade deadline and get more for him after showing him off a little bit. So both these trades don't have to be made right away. It sounds like, yes, Jrue Holiday, if the price is right, can be had right now. And yes, James Harden next week at Media Day, it's going to be full-on destruction.
He's not going to their Media Day. He threw a party where he had bottle girls holding up signs that said, like, Daryl Morey's a liar. Someone else may have paid for those. I don't know. I will say that. I was like, I don't want this shit on my team. I don't want the possibility of this bullshit on the team.
Here's what I'll say, though, regarding your question, Jrue Holiday or James Harden. If it takes more to get James Harden, which I think is likely, I think the better option is Jrue Holiday. Whatever takes less, whatever gives you a better chance of not having to give up Terrence Mann to get that guy, I think is what you want. But I would also say, if you get Jrue Holiday, I think it means Bones Highland still has a bigger role on this team. If you get James Harden, I think his role is diminished. And maybe he would be involved in the move. I don't know. But one of these guys, between him, KJ Martin, your guy Kobe Brown, even Terrence Mann, I think somebody, at least one, has to have a breakout type of year for this Clippers team to contend at the highest level.
It's Bones. I think he gets the most playing time of those guys. It's got to be Bones. Bones needs to have whatever the Bones breakout year is, probably finishing better at the rim and things like that. Yeah.
But with Harden, how much playing time would he get? I know James Harden is injury prone as well and could be a guy who only plays 50 games during the regular season. So you'd still need him in spots. But yeah, I think if Jrue Holiday is there because of his defensive acumen, you still need Bones Highland to really show some growth this season.
And then the bench is nice. If Russ goes to say Jrue comes, and I think if Jrue Holiday is a Clipper at some point, Russ goes to the bench. You're just not running those two guys at the 1 and 2. I really hope you're not. Then you got a bench that's like this kind of insane. Like you got Russ and Terrence together, maybe, which is something a lot of people want. You got KJ Martin out there. You got Bones. Like, you have these weird pieces, and I mean weird in a good way. You have all these offensive pieces. Whatever shakes out with the power forward position, they're probably going to play KJ at the 3 still. It still does show that we need some power forward depth, but that's a fun bench. That's a bench that has legs is the other important thing too for the Clippers.
They could definitely score and put up some points. I wonder how many teams they're stopping on the other end.
Not a lot.
If Batum is not starting, and that was one of the other things I was going to mention when he talked about the competition at the power forward position. Well, Batum doesn't even want to start. It's like he's taking himself out.
Good point.
Of the equation, right?
Yeah, good call.
Rocco
just wants to play too.
Yeah, you brought up a great point on our last show that it wasn't just that Batum may feel that he's stepping on somebody's toes, and I was kind of just speculating whether or not he wanted Marcus Morris to start, and that's why he didn't want to be too pushy about it. But you brought up how him next to Russell Westbrook means you have to run more.
Yeah.
And that was a reason that maybe he doesn't want to be in the starting lineup. But
which
look,
is fair.
If you're coming off if you're with Bones, if you're with Terrence Mann,
you're running.
You're still like, yeah, there aren't many options in this league anymore not to run
true.
with the pace they play at.
That quote, what you just said, there's not a lot of options to not run, is getting me more nervous about our power forward position. Because I love that these trade ideas are out there, but now I'm like, we need a power forward who can run. Because we talked about KJ Martin on the last episode and about how he played, like this weird split of his positional minutes in Houston the 2 years. It was like really heavy power forward and then really heavy small forward. It seems like his natural fit small forward. So unless we're going to go kind of mega small on the bench, which I guess we've seen these 3-guard lineups and things like that, he's going to be playing the 3. So now I guess I'm still just as worried about the power forward depth, which La Murray ranked, I think, as like the second worst in the league, which I totally agree with. It's a really rough rotation right now.
My hope is, and maybe it's wishful thinking, but because of his extreme athleticism and pogo stick-like legs, that he can play up a position and be at the 4. And you said he played it almost 75% of the time 2 years ago for the Houston Rockets. It was only at 13%, I believe, last year at the 4 position for KJ Martin. Mm-hmm. But I think he's capable in the right lineups. And by the way, Lawrence Frank also talked about, yes, Kawhi could play up, guard up, and be at the 4 position. That is something that's available.
Guard up, yeah, but offensively it's a little different. Eric Bui says, F it, just start KJ. We'll see. I don't know if that'll happen, but it would be fun.
I think that's actually a message from 1991 with Phoenix. No, but you brought up that bench unit and just how many options you can have. I think that's going to be a running thread in here for a lot of this season. Just as much as there are more defined roles, maybe with the starting lineup outside the 4 position, the combinations coming off the bench, I didn't even mention Norm when I brought up Bones and Terrence Mann. They have a legit 6-man candidate that might have won it last year if he didn't miss so much time over Malcolm Brogdon in Norman Powell, who is turning into an unsung hero because I didn't bring him up. The guy averaged 18 points a game.
We're kind of forgetting Norm's tenure with the Clippers so far is kind of like, you're like, oh yeah, and then Norm can walk into 20.
Just had this, 40-point game in game 3 of the playoffs against the Suns when they had nobody else to go to. Norm's a bucket, as the kids say.
Very clearly.
Nowadays, everybody want to talk. They got something to say, but nothing comes out.
Okay, no, we're not doing Eminem raps.
They forgot about Norm.
Eminem on this podcast ever. If you want to unsubscribe, I'll send you $1 if you had to unsubscribe because of that. So now I feel like we're in the same vein as last year. It's like we got all these contributors. I'm hoping training camp we see some defined roles. We've kind of already talked about, choosing between Jrue and Harden. I don't think it's that easy. I'm on team Jrue right now. I'm like, let's make the play. Let's get really good at defense. Let's be this weird, because it's not like, Jrue Holiday comes. It's not like our 2-way guys. Kawhi and PG are still elite offensively. We still have guys, it's not like they're better defensively than they are offensively. They're elite offensively. So that, I think, offsets. I'm saying bring Jrue in and then maybe a younger power forward. That would be great.
Jrue Holiday is basically a rich man's Terrence Mann. He is a more developed seasoned Terrence Mann.
He's a billionaire's Terrence Mann.
The question is, how much has he lost? Because I know there have been murmurs that he's lost a step here and there, but
Everyone has
I
on this
think
team.
his
We just gotta play.
physicality
Yeah.
is what sets him apart. The way he guards guys in the post, the way he will hound them going up the court that wears down their legs. Just ask Paul George.
I was just gonna say, if Jrue Holiday is on the Clippers, Paul George can ball handle again because he won't have to worry about him checking him at half court.
Yeah. You got to strengthen your team and make somebody else have a weakness because you're taking away a guy that they used to use against you.
Why not? I did like you mentioned Jeremy Grant. Is that someone who you'd maybe, if the Clippers don't make this play before, the end of October is that timeline that La Murray said, would you want to see the Clippers make a play for Jeremy Grant? He gets paid a lot of money.
Yeah, it was
He's
much
making
easier.
27.5 this year, 29.7 next year, and even 32 and 25-26, 34 and 26-27, and then a player option for 36 million. The more that I run that down, if the cap's going up every single year, that's not the craziest thing.
No.
Oh, Timothy Albo, great point. Grant can't be traded till January. So this would be, thank you, Timothy. This would be much further down the road, which I personally, that feels a little, maybe we're in dire straits if we're making a giant swing kind of near the trade deadline.
Or if you just strike out and you're not able to get Jrue or James Harden, and you have to have that ABC contingency plan just in case. And I'm sure with this front office, they're looking at everything. I like Jeremy Grant. I do. I've been a fan of his. He had an incredible first 2 months as a Detroit Piston before he started to tire out because he realized he was the only guy there and they needed way too much from him.
Yeah, I'm not going to do this anymore.
But it was like MVP level production for about a 2-month period from him. And even just last season in his short stint with Portland, he ended up shooting 40% from three, 21 points per game. Like, this is somebody who I do like as a third option a lot. The question is, how much could he play at the 4 as opposed to being a small forward out there? And he did play power forward. At least he was listed as that. But yeah, give me the percentages, Chuck. How much did he actually play there?
I feel like such a dork because I will say I'm not a deep basketball mind, I would say, but it is fun to know where people play positions so you know where to talk about stuff. He played 94% of his minutes at power forward last year for the Blazers.
What are the Clippers in need of, though? I mean,
do
they really need a power forward?
He's right there. He passes my percentage test, which is okay. Well, the funny part is, let's look at all his percentages because it's not even really that close.
The only thing I worry about with him is like playmaking and being a connector. His assist to turnover ratio,
but
it was 2.4 to 1.8. Right? No, I know, but just
we gotta trust him.
You don't want a ball stopper in there.
Yeah, that is true. We need the connector, which is something that Kobe Brown is good at. So Jeremy Grant, here's the last 6 or 7 seasons of power forward percentages. 99% in 2018, 2019, 83% in 2019 to 2020, 68% for Detroit in 2020, 21, and then 95 and 94%. The man is a power forward.
He's comfortable there. There's no issue. There's no issue. Yeah. You could slot him right in. That's an interesting thought. Especially if they could get him and Jrue Holiday somehow, but maybe I'm just going crazy.
Man, I'll tell you what, if the Clippers are making a trade for Jrue Holiday and Jeremy Grant, I don't know how I feel about our chances going into the playoffs because that's a big ass shift roster-wise. Very late in the season.
Whatever. That January deadline. I guess we can table the Jeremy Grant stuff because it's not a possibility at the moment.
I like the idea, though.
Anyways, but keep it in the back of your mind. Yeah, it's worth monitoring.
Will Updike a big Jeremy Grant fan?
Is he? I know he was a big Dame fan. How is
he? Was.
Did you get a reaction from him today? I didn't see him say much in the group chat regarding Dame being in Milwaukee now.
Not really. I think we're all just excited that the Suns got worse. Because the Suns got worse, right?
Let's talk about that.
Nurk
I think that's interesting.
As good as DeAndre Ayton. If you're from Serbia, maybe you think he is, but he's not as good as DeAndre Ayton. No. Vibes-wise, yes. Everything else involving basketball, no.
I definitely think at best they're marginally better, and at worst it could be significant than what the potential was, at least with having DeAndre Ayton there, if he
Right.
was willing to play nice. Just look at how much Nurkic and where his availability has been at the last 4 seasons now. 8 games played in 1920, then 37 games played, then 56, then 52. Like, I know he's a good passer. I know he's a good locker room guy, and I think they like him because he makes quick decisions and is more of a finisher and not a ball stopper like DeAndre Ayton
And
could be at
wants to be
times.
there.
And wants to be there, of course, and wants to win a championship. But I think it's obviously a talent downgrade. Could the fit be better? Maybe. But I was interested to see what Frank Vogel was going to do with DeAndre Ayton, who was a big man whisperer.
Right.
You know? Wasn't
Yeah.
that part of the point of bringing in Vogel, to get the most out of DeAndre Ayton next to these other guys? But I understand it from the perspective of they had 4 guys making $30 million. Like, that
You've already
limits you
gone all
so
in,
much
though.
with your
Just
depth.
go. Like, you've already gone all in. Race Marlin, excuse me, says the interesting piece the Suns got is Grayson Allen, who I personally, I do not like watching him play basketball or the things he does on the court. But he
Great
does
guy,
shoot.
never dirty.
He does shoot 40% from 3. He's a grinder. He does the dirty work. He's some good depth. Imagine how much we're gonna hate him in a Suns uniform now that we have to see him regularly.
I'm not going to hate him on the defensive end when they hunt him.
Oh,
Just
hey,
like,
I will until he takes a knee into someone else's knee and tries to trip somebody.
okay, that's scary. You
God, I
saying
hate
he's
Grayson
Joe
Allen.
Ingles light?
Yes, I'd say he's maybe Joe Ingles heavy.
Ted Cruz heavy?
Yeah. Kratos puts up a good call. Like, the team across, like, Jokic, and, like, if you're the Suns, the centers in the West are very good. You have 2 guys who are very good, especially Jokic. Like, that's it. They're just not. I don't see it. I think they got worse, which I'm very happy for the Clippers. The Blazers keep tanking and getting your picks. 2 teams got worse in the Western Conference, which is always good for the Clippers.
I did think for a second, it's just nice that somebody great is going to the East now, and Damian Lillard, because last time I checked, KD just came to the West and Kyrie just came to the
Right.
West.
Get the
And it
talent
was
out of
already lopsided in favor of the Western Conference, as it has been basically since Jordan retired the second time. Like, it's going back almost 25 years now, Western Conference supremacy. Now, I wanted to circle back and go back to something you asked me and get your opinion on this. Who do you want more between Jrue Holiday and James Harden for this Clippers team?
I'm on the Jrue train. If we don't have to give up Terrence Mann, give me Jrue Holiday.
What if
Let's
you do?
do it.
What if you do?
If we do, I still think I want Jrue Holiday. I might be looking.
That's tough.
I might be looking too much into the off-court stuff. We have a team. Imagine if this team had personalities that acted like James Harden acts when things aren't going well. Shit would be so much worse for this Clippers team if we had that kind of thing. You know what I mean?
They haven't had locker room issues for the most part, outside of what was said in the bubble.
Right. But the bubble, it was like, it's its own thing. It's its own.
It hasn't been a real issue since the Lob City era.
No, and maybe the Trez stuff when he was just yelling at Tomer Azerly in the locker room that one time.
I didn't know it was Tomer who had to wear it.
Dude, no, Tomer was the guy who was there who was just getting those great Trez quotes after they lost by when they were getting booed by the fans and like Trez went on that diatribe. Tomer was just like in the locker room, all right. So shout out Tomer. But no, I don't want. Things are already so difficult. We don't need a guy who parties a shit ton. And I know I might sound like an old man. He's very good at basketball. I'm not discrediting that part. But Jrue is just as good at what Jrue does as what James Harden does for James Harden. You know what I'm saying? But without the partying and all this potential nightmarish bullshit. Jrue Holiday also has it. We think there's at least a 50% chance that he stays with the team after this season. James Harden is a free agent, unrestricted. I want no part of that. I want no part of trying to court James Harden because James Harden is somebody who's going to enjoy free agency, right? Like, he obviously likes to be wined and dined and all this stuff. Like, give me the guy who already knows very well how to play with one superstar and let him do his thing and sacrifice maybe some other stuff to win a championship, who might also be on the team, has a greater chance of being on the team at least one more year. And if we don't have to give up Terrence Mann, which I understand might be a bit of a stretch, a fantastic mentor for the old Terrence Mann. Or we just say fuck it and get a power forward, which sure, let's do that. So I think I'm on Team Jrue.
My just biggest concern, and I love Jrue Holiday too, it's not really about Jrue, it's just whether or not you have to give up Terrence Mann in either of these moves is it puts even more pressure on you to have to get it done this year because this really could be it.
Oh, the pressure's already just like at a 10 out of 10, right? We're in contract years for our 2 stars that we traded a bunch of stuff for. We're already there. What's more pressure?
Well, but I'm saying you have so little to fall back on if you lose Terrence Mann in the future, who is 5 years younger than Jrue Holiday. That's tough.
Damn. Okay, yeah. Okay. Yeah. But again, counterpoint, Kobe Brown. I'm just kidding.
You may lose him too in the move, Chuck.
I know, that's
I don't
true.
want to have to bring that up.
I know. Or Brandon Boston. We'd probably lose Brandon Boston.
One of the best series of his career, and I thought it was eye-opening at the time, from Jrue Holiday was first round 2018 against the Portland Trailblazers. Guess who he wrecked in that series? Damian Lillard. I know that was 2018. It's 5 years ago, but he averaged 28 points per game in that series on 57% shooting. Jrue Holiday did. It was incredible. And the way that they just disrupted Portland's offense like it was nothing. It was actually him and Rondo.
So imagine we get like the disruption ability. That word is so great for what Jrue can help this Clippers team do. We can disrupt other people's offense. Like in the half court, when things slow down in the playoffs, Jrue Holiday, PG, and Kawhi, good fucking luck. Good luck against that 1, 2, 3, whoever's at the 4, and then Zoo out there. That's a nice playoff lineup.
And does getting Jrue Holiday really solidify more of an identity with this team than getting James Harden?
Yes, I didn't even think of that, but yes, it fully does. This is like hard nose. We're going to play defense. We're going to take this shit seriously. When you take the season seriously, do you think of James Harden?
I mean, he's been pretty damn good in the regular season.
I'm not saying he hasn't been good or bad, but when you think of take the regular season seriously, do you think of is it James Harden or Jrue Holiday that
I don't think of him first
for that?
I don't think of him first. Jrue Holiday is certainly there's a
professionalism.
There's
a different approach, it seems. Not to say that I wouldn't be going to a bunch of crazy strip clubs if I were a millionaire playing basketball, but I would also understand if people wanted the person who didn't do those things to be on their team.
And Jrue's 3-point shooting has really improved over just the last 3 seasons with Milwaukee. He's been shooting about, on average in those 3 seasons, a little over 40%. So this is somebody that can help stretch the floor while just being the point of attack defender and taking up that challenge on the other end and taking some of that responsibility off of Kawhi and Paul George a little bit and Russ. Like they both make the game easier in different ways, James Harden and Jrue Holiday. Mm-hmm. Holiday obviously is not the playmaker that James Harden is, but James Harden isn't close to the defender that Jrue Holiday is. So I think both guys can really help the team in different ways. It's not an easy decision. I guess I'd probably lean Jrue Holiday just because I think you would have to give up less. You may still have to give up Terrence, but overall, you're going to have to give up less.
Yeah. This was a good point. Jeremy Mormon, crazy last name, asked, does James Harden take the home down discount? I don't think after what happened taking a discount in Philly, he takes another discount.
He fumbled the bag with Brooklyn. He had $160 million on the table and he didn't take it.
And I would do the same if I were him. If I'd fucked up one contract already, it was my last year for it's his last big-ish contract. He's not taking a discount. He likes money.
It depends on how the season goes. Nobody thought. I think it was pretty unanimous that Russ was likely leaving and not going to take $3.8 million. And yet he did. So who knows? It all depends how the season goes. He's back in Southern California. How much is that worth to him? I don't know. There could be some discount there. But both the bottom line is we both feel like the Clippers need an upgrade. And one of these guys could be that.
Somewhere. Power forward, one of these guys. Let's get it done. Jabos84 says, let's get Jrue and Harden. Love it. Call it in. Send the trades. let's get both.
It's that easy.
It's that easy. All right. So, Adam, you are going to be at Media Day on Monday, correct?
I'll be there. Yeah.
Will you be wearing a suit?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
I'm going to be my Jrue Holiday professional.
Oh, man.
I'll be looking good. I'll take a picture and send it just to you, Chuck, if you want it.
Okay, well, maybe the group chat doesn't have to be that intimate. All right, so you're going to be there Monday, and then we are going to be talking about everything that was mentioned at Clippers Media Day on another kind of live hang for an episode recording. Adam, anything else we kind of want to break down? I have to do some work at some point, or I will be let go. Anything else you want to get into?
I'd like to say this about Milwaukee and how everyone is immediately saying, well, they're the odds-on favorite. They're the team to beat. They're this tough. Yes, they got significantly better. I think they are the best team in the East. But we've just been through this 3 different times recently, starting with the Clippers. They got Kawhi and Paul George. They have yet to win. Then it was the Brooklyn Nets. They got Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, and then added James Harden. And it was a foregone conclusion they were going to be able to win. Then when Kevin Durant went to the Suns last year, it was, oh, they're the team to beat. We've seen this over and over again, and it still comes down to health. It still comes down to a lot of good luck on your side. And it's been underreported, but both Chris Middleton and Giannis Antetokounmpo had knee cleanups this offseason. Chris Middleton's coming off a wrist injury. He only played 30 games last year. Brook Lopez is 35 and is their defensive anchor, and Damian Lillard has never been known for his defense. They are having a trade-off there, getting rid of Jrue for Dame defensively. They're likely not going to be as good.
But Dame's offense,
no, it's unbelievable. He also, though, looked like he was starting to slow down and then had this great year last year after a couple of injury-plagued seasons. I think he's going to be great. I think if he's healthy, he and Giannis and that 1-2 punch is going to be absolutely deadly in the pick and roll and tough to stop. And if Chris Middleton is back, because he had that injury in the 2022 playoffs with his knee, and he just had another surgery on it, they're going to be the team to beat in the East. But I'll tell you what, if the Clippers can somehow come out of the West, I still feel pretty good about those matchups against Damian Lillard and Giannis because, well, they have wrecked Damian Lillard. If you look,
bro, he's terrible against the Clippers.
5 years, yes, against the 2-3 era of the Clippers. He's had some of the worst games of his career against them. And I still think Kawhi against Giannis, who, yes, he's a better player.
Jrue Holiday into the mix? Good luck, buddy.
I just saying, we're looking too far into the future, but since everybody is already saying the Milwaukee Bucks are the best team in the league, I don't hate a healthy Clippers team and how they can match up against them.
Not at all. Who does? Thank you to everyone who hung out on this live stream kind of question hang. We do these every once in a while when random stuff happens over on youtube.com/@ClippersPodcast. You can find us on Twitter @ClippersPod. Sometimes we get sassy. Stop telling us to stop talking about Harden. He's a trade target. I don't know what to say. If there's news, we'll talk about it. So today there was news.
We're doing the job.
You can find this podcast anywhere you find podcasts. We'd love reviews on iTunes. Someone gave us a 4-star review and said that we interrupt too much. That's totally on me. I lost us that star. I'm an interrupter.
Happens to all of us, Chuck. I just did it right now.
But yeah, thanks for hanging out. This will be up. If you missed the live, this is going to be up on all the platforms and whatnot in a couple minutes. But as always, we'll be back on Monday. And yeah, let's go Clips. I'm going to click end stream. There might be a couple seconds. So if you see us do something weird,